Before you buy a Labubu toy, watch this. What they didn't know. Labubu is not just a toy. Lagos is a city of hustle, fashion, and hot trends. In Lekki, three best friends, Amoka and Debbie, share more than just friendship. They shared vibes, parties, and dreams of blowing on social media. They were TikTok girls, fine, nice shape, and always chasing the next big thing. One Friday night, after eating shawarma and scrolling through TikTok at Debbie's apartment, Toke screamed, "Oh! See this toy where everybody dey buy now. Labubu." She turned her phone for them to see. It was an odd-looking toy, with a funny head, big eyes, and tiny sharp teeth. But for some reason, people loved it. Dem says if you get your content go viral, Debbie said. Even influencers for abroad dey buy Amoka added. That night, they couldn't stop thinking about it. They joked, laughed, and finally agreed to each contribute money to buy one Labubu and take turns keeping it. They just wanted clout. And follow the trend. The next morning, they entered a boat to Yaba market. After asking around, a guy directed them to a narrow path behind a row of vintage shops. There, they saw a small store filled with odd dolls, toys, and carvings. A quiet man stood inside, eyes red like he hadn't slept in days. "You dey find Labubu?" he asked. "How you know?" Toke asked, surprised. He didn't answer. He went and brought out a box, and showed them the toy. The three girls gasped. It looked exactly like the one online, but somehow, the real one looked older, worn, and kind of creepy. "How much?" Debbie asked. 45,000 Nigerian nairas. Original. No fake, the man said. But once you buy they return. They laughed, thinking it was just sales talk. As they were leaving, an old woman sweeping nearby looked at them and said, "Not everything trending is meant for your hand." They ignored her. Lagos girls don't fear market gist. Labubu stayed with Amoka first. She used it to shoot a funny video with a voiceover. The next morning 1 million views. Our first ever. She screamed in excitement. "It work. Omo, this toy is magic." That same day, while walking on the staircase to an event, where she was supposed to sign a brand deal, she slipped and fell. She had a fracture and it took weeks for her to heal. She was heartbroken but tried to stay calm. Then it was Debbie's turn to go with the Labubu toy. Debbie sleeps beside the Labubu on her bed. At night, she'd hear small movements in her room like plastic shifting, but thought it was a rat. She ignored it. The next morning her skin was full of black spot rashes. Still, the girls didn't connect it to Labubu. When Toke took Labubu home, she was excited. She placed it on the chair beside her and made a TikTok video with it. Boom, 2 million views. 50k likes. She started gaining followers. The next morning her TikTok and Instagram pages were hacked. Out of nowhere, problems started piling up for the three friends. The girls met at Debbie's apartment and spoke about their experiences. The whole thing started happening when they bought this Labubu. That was when they knew the Labubu they brought home was evil. The room went cold. "What exactly did we bring into our lives?" Toke asked. They stared at it. "Maybe we should burn it," Amoka said. "No, let's just throw it away first," Toke replied. They wrapped it in black nylon, placed it in a waste bin down the street, and returned home relieved. But 20 minutes later, as they jizzed in the sitting room, Toke's eyes widened. She screamed. Labubu was back. Sitting on the chair, the same odd smile on its face. Same smile. Same position. But now, it looked like its eyes were wet. The next morning, fear was written on their faces. Debbie barely slept. Amoka looked pale. Toke had prayed all night with her mother's anointing oil, but nothing worked. Labubu was still in the living room, smiling. "We need to take it back to that man in Yaba," Toke said firmly. "Yes," Reby agreed. "Let him collect this thing and refund us. Or at least take it away from us." They grabbed the toy, wrapped it again in nylon like it was a dead body, and entered the boat. The driver kept glancing in his mirror as the girls argued in low tones. Even he could feel something was off. They got down at the same street, the one behind the vintage stores. But something was wrong. The path that once led to the small kiosk was now blocked. Old zinc sheets covered the entrance. The stall itself was gone. "Are we in the wrong place?" Amoka asked. "No, this is the same corner," Toke replied, confused. They approached a meat seller nearby. "Sorry, Oga, please, where is that small toy shop that used to be here?" The man wiped his knife, looked at them, and said, "Toy shop? Madam, this place not for foodstuff and second-hand clothes. Nobody they sell toy here." The girls froze. Another woman selling tomatoes overheard them. "You girls say toy shop? For here? Since when? We know they get that kind thing for this side of market. But we bought a toy here just last week." Reby shouted. A Malam sitting under a tree looked up slowly and said, "Many people don't they come here they talk the same thing. Say them see shop where no day." Goosebumps ran through their skin. They asked around. Everyone said the same thing. No one had ever seen a man selling toys there. "But we saw him," Toke screamed. "He sold us this thing. Obi them use jazz for our eyes," Amoka whispered. Reby unwrapped the nylon. "Maybe if we leave it here." "Don't open it here," someone shouted from across the road. It was the same old woman who warned them the first day. She pointed at them with shaking fingers. "You people no listen. Now it has followed you." "Who followed us?" "Madam, what is this thing?" Toke cried. The woman simply shook her head and turned away. Behind them, the nylon moved slightly on its own. Back in Reby's apartment, the air was heavy. Labubu was back on the table, out of the nylon, staring at them. "But I wrapped it myself," Amoka said. "We left it in the market," Reby added. They were shaking. Toke dropped to the floor, sobbing. "This thing is ruining our lives. I've lost everything I worked for all these years." Suddenly, Amoka stood up. "Let's burn it." "No," Reby said slowly. "Let's drown it in the lagoon." They stared at the toy. Its grin was still there, but now, it looked wider. And its tiny hand was pointing them. The next morning, the girls met at the third mainland bridge. They had wrapped Labubu tightly in black nylon, tied it with rope, and placed it inside a Gonomos go bag filled with stones. Nobody talked much during the ride. They were exhausted, confused, and scared. Lagos was still waking up, yellow buses honking, hawkers shouting, but for the girls, the world felt like it was closing in. "This is it," Toke whispered. They walked quietly to the edge of the bridge, made sure no one was watching, and flung the bag into the water. It disappeared instantly beneath the waves. No splash. No trace. Gone. They didn't speak as they entered their boat back home. There was a strange peace, like they had finally freed themselves. Or so they thought. Back at Reby's apartment, she unlocked the door, exhaled in relief, and stepped inside. Amoka followed. Then Toke. But the moment they entered the sitting room, they froze. The toy was on the center table. Not wet. Not wrapped. Sitting there dry, grinning. Toke screamed and dropped her bag. Amoka backed up to the door. Reby's knees buckled. "No, we threw it in the ocean. We all saw it. The toy was facing them now. But something had changed. Its eyes were red. That night, none of them could sleep. At exactly 2:13 a.m., each girl had the same dream. They were in a dark room. Labubu was sitting on a chair, whispering things they couldn't understand. Behind it stood a shadowy figure, tall and silent, breathing heavily. The room smelled of burnt plastic and wet wood. Then the figure pointed at them one by one. Debbie. Toke. Amoka. They all woke up screaming. Each from their own bed. Each with a scratch mark on their inner arm. Same shape. Same spot. Amoka called an emergency meeting the next morning. I can't take this again, she said. Her eyes were puffy. I saw the scratch. I felt it in the dream. I woke up and it was real. Debbie was silent, shaking. Toke brought out her phone. I googled it. Labubu is not just a toy. It's linked to some dark ritual thing from Asia. Japan or something. Some say it carries spirits, restless ones. So we invited a demon into our lives because of TikTok. Debbie whispered. The room went quiet. Then Amoka asked what they had all been avoiding. What if the only way to stop this is if one of us cry? The toy, still sitting on the shelf, giggled. The air in Debbie's apartment had changed. Cold. Still. The curtains barely moved, yet the girls felt like something was watching them from every corner. Toke sat on the floor, clutching her phone. We need help. They went to a local prayer house in Mushin. The prophet listened quietly as they explained everything: how they bought a strange toy, how their lives fell apart, how the toy refused to go away. When they showed him Labubu's photo, the man stood up slowly. This thing is not a toy. It carries a spirit of vanity and destruction. It attaches itself to those hungry for fame, fast attention, and fake success. They stared at him, speechless. He continued, you opened the door by yourself. Not every trend is for you. Some things online come with hidden battles. He led them through 3 nights of prayer, fasting, and deliverance. The toy was wrapped in white cloth, covered with salt, and burned behind the church. As the fire rose, it screamed not with sound but in their minds. Like something angry, it had been cast out. They never saw it again, but the damage was done. Debbie had to start her business from scratch. Toke lost her apartment and moved back in with her aunt. Amoka missed a scholarship interview because her laptop crashed the week of the test. They rebuilt, slowly. Quietly. And away from the noise of fake online life. 6 months later, they met one afternoon at a quiet cafe in Ikeja. No filters, no ring light, no TikTok, just 3 friends, laughing like old times. I'm done chasing trends, Debbie said. Toke smiled. I'm done comparing myself to people online. Amoka sipped her drink. If it's not bringing me peace, I don't want it. They had all learned the hard way. Life lesson: in a world where clout is louder than truth, and trends move faster than sense, pause. Not everything online is meant for you. Some doors, once opened, refuse to close. Chase purpose, not noise. Because not all that's trending is harmless. The end.